Away.
Yeah. Crack open the can. Have you started or you just finished?
I'm just starting now.
Listen, I wouldn't be the same if I didn't have a can.
Oh, there we go.
Ready?
I don't know to go
Take 10, it's in your blood. Right, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. What do you want to hear?
Can you explain
Explain what?
decided to attack last week?
Okay, I'm asked why the Palestinians decided to attack last week or whenever it was, last Friday or Thursday, whatever it was. Why now? Well, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know why now. I point to an anomaly though. What strikes me, and we were discussing this a little earlier on, is I find it a bit odd that the strongest defended border in the world, I mean, I lived in East Germany under the Berlin Wall, and it was very tightly controlled, but it wasn't as tightly controlled as the border between the Israeli occupied and the Palestinian area, or the Palestinian area and the Israeli area. And you know, they've got multiple mechanisms of surveillance and control. So for, you know, they're not denying it. They're all saying this was a massive security failure. So that's one possibility, is that there's a massive security failure and that Hamas, in secret, plotted, this was mainstream story, plotted this attack that maimed and killed 1,300 people or whatever it is, 2,000 injured and hundreds captured. So that's one argument. The mainstream argument is it was a security laxity on the part of the Israeli state. Is that possible? I mean, it's a possibility. I don't know. He's asking me to give commentary on things I can't give you a proper answer to. I personally, I think it's unlikely. In which case, you'd have to ask yourself, who stands to gain? You know, in any major events, political, military, economic, you always have to ask yourself that, whether you're right or not. It's always logical and rational to ask yourself, when an atrocity, a horror story, a war, when these things break out, it's always logical to ask, who stands to gain? Who benefits? And it's worth asking, are they responsible for the events themselves? Now, again, I don't know. But who stands to gain? Well, the arms industry stands to gain. Those speculating on the oil market stand to gain. I think oil rose to $90 a barrel a couple of days ago. Those perhaps speculating and involved in undermining the security of multiple states across the region, because that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about regional warfare and also political interests. I spoke to Danny earlier on, he was quite correct. You know, part of the game of war nowadays is mass media, social media as well. How do people respond to an event that takes place? So then I ask myself, one thing I saw, you know, when you see these things, you don't at least I don't automatically assume conspiratorial ideas. I don't. Although, as someone pointed out to me a little earlier on, there are many conspiracies, particularly organized by the Israeli state. Particularly the Israeli state. It's one of the kingpins in global conspiracies. Also, one of the people who've suffered conspiracies against them. In fact, that's partly why they're masters of conspiracy. You know, Around the world, many killings have happened, orchestrated and organised by Mossad. Many, not just a handful, many. And I spoke to a Palestinian a few minutes ago, and he said to me, I asked him, I said, well, I quoted, my friend here showed me a quotation from Benjamin Netanyahu, who said in 2019 that it's in their interest to finance and support Hamas. Why? Because we know that Hamas was used as a tool to undermine the PLO, the Palestinian Authority people. So that's another angle and direction. The trajectories are multiple on this. The conspiracies are multiple on this. There is no clear vision about what is happening in Israel or Palestine or the Middle East, and there hasn't been for decades, except this. The simple facts about Israeli occupation, about Israeli colonization, about the oppression of the Palestinian people, those cannot be denied. And that is why you had yesterday 150, 200,000 people marching on the streets of London. By the way, isn't it unheard of that in France and Germany, democratic citadels of the Western world, supposedly, they've now banned demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people, in support of the Palestinians, not in support of Hamas, but in support of the Palestinians. In other words, there is a powerful link between whatever forces are pushing this war and whatever forces control Germany and France. Not only that, but the British government. I mean, it's one thing to say there was a horrendous attack on Jewish people. It's another thing to say we will support threats and bombs and killing against an imprisoned people, demanding they move from X to Z in 3 hours, 1 million people on pain of death. What sort of barbaric policy is that? And I ask those Jewish people I know, and those friends of mine in Israel, and Jewish people around the world, and people who sympathize with the Jewish cause around the world. You know, once upon a time, Leon Trotsky said, if they were to create a state of Israel, it would be a prison camp for the Jews themselves. And of course, that's what although they're a majority, I had friends someone came out to me a few months ago. She's Jewish from Hungary, living, I think, in America. She got famous for some video she made. And then she told me she went to Israel for a while and then she had to leave because they were giving her money to go to Israel. They were setting up housing, giving her money to live there. If you move there as a Jewish person, you're suddenly given all these resources. At the same time as the Palestinian people are blocked out, or the oppression of the Palestinian people is blocked out from public vision, and this leads to the barbarism we saw on the part of Hamas, and more importantly now, on the part of the Israeli state. I had some people this morning, they came up to me and they said to me, well, we are left-wing Jewish people living in Israel. And we are horrified that kibbutzim were attacked, that a festival was attacked. And by the way, again, I can't help asking myself, why was the festival for peace, this trance festival that was attacked, why was that moved to that location 2 days before it happened? Why? And then suddenly the people come in and land there as if they knew. I mean, what were they? Were they part of the festival? How did they know this was going to happen there? I don't know. Maybe that's a conspiracy theory beyond the pale. Maybe it's accidental. But you know, in these type of things, often it's very murky. And you cannot be sure that the whole thing is not something orchestrated. If it's not orchestrated, if it's just barbaric behavior, well, why does this barbarism come about? Because they have, why do they get the support? They get the support because of the barbaric treatment of the people ineffectively. And yes, I know this is not going to be popular among some people to say, but what the hell is the Gaza Strip? 2 million people, if they just, even now when they're bombarding them, they're telling them, you can't leave. The British are telling them, if you're British, get ready to leave. So in other words, the British can leave, maybe in an hour or 2 hours. I don't know if anyone's got the latest news when you're allowed to leave. The Palestinians told you must leave the north and go to the south in 3 hours. 1 million people, thousands of people in hospitals, 50,000 pregnant women, and that's supposed to be okay because of barbaric treatment of Israeli people. It is barbarism far worse than what was carried out against the Israeli people. That's all you have to do. There's no way you can get around that. It's a terrible thing that happened. But there's no way you can get around the fact, the massive aerial bombardment against the people with no army, with no defence force, blocked in, that can't be called anything other than a concentration camp. That's what it is. They made Gaza into a concentration camp. And the Nazis didn't blow up the concentration camp, by the way. They didn't blow them up, right? This is barbaric behaviour. Therefore, of course I'm opposed to what the Israelis are doing against the Palestinian people there. The question then comes, well, what's going to happen? And I'm no expert on Palestine or Israel. I'm not. My limitation, over the years, I've followed a little bit intractable, ongoing, constant conflict and war, mistreatment of the people, elevation of some, degradation and denigration of the others. And then they wonder, why. I went on the demo yesterday. I saw people go past. They're shouting Allahu Akbar. And I thought, well, this is pushing it. And then I read this morning that if you're Arabic and Christian, Allahu Akbar means God is great. For a Christian, that's all it means. A Christian Arab will say that. So there's nothing strange about that. People have their faith, their belief. It turns to terror, it turns to mass violence when people, of course, are oppressed. When September the 11th happened, again, a monstrous attack on the people of America. By whom, we don't know. We're told it was a certain people. We know. They said it was Bin Laden and co. And then it was found out most of them were from Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden himself was, if you like, one of the wealthiest families in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabians had been financing the war against Russia back in Afghanistan. They organised, the Saudi Arabians and the Americans organised deep tunnels to defend the Bin Laden and his army of Mujahideen in Afghanistan back in the day, up until 1990 or so. They used to be allies of the CIA. So of course the question then comes, who's the ally amongst these people? In the terrorist forces, in the militant religious forces. Who are the allies of these people? Who makes deals with whom? And of course, from the point of view of Arab people, I'm not an Arab, but from the point of view of the Arab people, the rulers of the Middle East are criminal, corrupt crooks as well. Criminal, corrupt crooks. The rulers of Israel are criminal, corrupt, and in fact they know the Israeli people were saying so in their millions only last year. The Israeli people protested and said, this is turning into a fascistic dictatorship. That's what the Israeli people were saying in Israel only last year on mass demonstrations, carrying the Israeli flag. Well, of course, in Egypt, what happened to the Egyptians? The Egyptians offering a little bit of support. Why aren't they flying in, dropping food and drinks parcels to the people? Why aren't they breaking the blockade to facilitate the people of the people of Palestine surviving? Why aren't they doing that? Why are the Saudis negotiating? Because they're all corrupt gangsters controlling that part of the world. And by the way, don't forget, they talk about Israel now. all over the news, all over the headlines, all in the newspapers, all on your computer screen, all on your mobile phone, scrolling through doom from morning till dusk. What happened to Ukraine? I thought we were fighting a war in Ukraine.
It's gone.
Ukraine's gone quiet. All of a sudden, Ukraine gone quiet. Why? Because the war has been lost in Ukraine. And now they've moved to another terrain to keep your eyes busy. And before the war in Ukraine, what were we doing? They were trying to get everybody in the world to take certain juice in their arm, on pain of imprisonment if you didn't leave home in Austria, on pain of sanctions if you left home in Germany, on pain of losing your job in America, in Britain, in France, and many other countries if you didn't take the vaccine from the multi-billionaire corporations invented over a period of a year or so and rolled out under emergency use authorization, now known to cause all sorts of nasty complications. But we can't talk about that because the nasty complications, if you talk in too much detail about them, you are taken off social media and eradicated or cancelled from human communication. And therefore what we have is a global elite controlling global politics, controlling global war, controlling global pharmaceuticals, controlling global banking. A global criminal corrupt elite control the world and throw dust in your eyes. First it's the war, first it's the virus, then it's the war. Now we're back to terror again. Didn't you notice how terror disappeared during COVID-19? Where was the terror? Where was the terror? Apart from that used against you. Stand apart, put a mask on, wash your hands, take the jab, or you lose your job. Stay at home, segregate one from another. You can travel, you can't travel. You're free, you're not free. They closed down Hyde Park Speaker's Corner during the so-called coronavirus pandemic. So, you remember, right, you did the best thing here. This guy came along here to annoy us. You turned around and said, it's time for your COVID booster. He ran away like a shot, like a bolt of lightning. So they throw the dust in your eyes, one story after another to fool you. A handful of multi-billionaires own and control the overwhelming majority of the wealth in this planet. And they organize games between them to control the world, to exploit the world, to dominate the world, and to plunder the world. Down with their system, down with their power, down with their war, down with their lies. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
It's only a quick one.
Go on.
And I know we won't have a quick answer.
Go on.
But the question is, I've been watching videos all week
That's not good for you.
of Israeli soldiers shooting children, right? So because they've done it, Hamas, they say have done it in multiples. Then we condone the fact that they've been doing it for years to the people.
I mean, last week I heard there was a Jewish guy there and an Arab guy standing next to him, and all I could hear was him saying, one day out of 75 years, one day out of 75 years, he kept saying that, and it echoed in my head all week long, one day out of 75 years. So that's why some people, I mean, repugnant as it may be, are celebrating one day out of 75 years. So that's the perspective I put on that.
Are the BBC impartial after
The BBC claims impartiality is farce. The BBC apart, I mean, the British government have just declared, look at Keir Starmer and that goon, Emily Thornberry, claiming to be the Labour Party, and saying, oh, we will support them no matter what they do. No matter what they do. Carte blanche to slaughter people. Carte blanche to carry out the policy they all declare is the most monstrous thing on earth. Ethnic cleansing and barbarity. Carte blanche to carry it out. And we will send in our weapons. How many weapons does the Israeli state need? The American Navy, two aircraft carriers. What the fuck do they need an aircraft carrier for? Against 2 million people in Gaza locked up in a prison. What the hell do they need an aircraft carrier for? It is utter and complete madness. Madness. And the only, literally it is. Every country of the world, the people must wake up to the string of lies, the string of misinformation, the string of distortion and dictatorial control over the entire spread of ideas across the world. You must drop your mobile phone at home. Half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 10 hours a day. Leave it at home. That's where the shit's coming to you from. That's how they're controlling you. They're controlling you through the mobile phone. That's what it is. Look everywhere you go. Everyone's on the bloody machine. Right? Where's your actual brain gone? We didn't grow up with that. They're controlling your brain through these machines, feeding you information. And they know enough about you. They know every email you've ever sent. They know every website you've ever looked at. They know every like you've ever liked. Every page you looked at for a second or 2 seconds, or scrolled through or jumped through. They know all your contacts and their contacts. And in that way they manipulate, they orchestrate the information space in the world to make it a weapon of war against the people of the world. That's how the system is actually run today.
Well said. Well said, sir.
One more. One more.
Is Sunak going to repeat Tony Blair's mistake?
Who is Sunak? Who elected him? He wasn't even elected by the Conservatives. Liz Truss was elected. As soon as she was in power for a month, the big businesses decided she must go. The king decides. Out she went, kicked out ingloriously, as if she was Jeremy Corbyn. Kicked her out, boom, straight out. In comes Slick Rishi. And Slick Rishi, what is he? He's establishment boy. He's Goldman Sachs. That's where he comes from. Goldman Sachs. Global, international capital controlling the world. That's who he represents. The idea he in any way represents the people is farcical. But of course, they have to respond to the mood amongst the population. And that is why, although if you wanted to know what Rishi Sunak would do 6 months or 1 year into government, all you had to do was come to Speaker's Corner and listen to Piers Corbyn, and after a while, Rishi Sunak starts echoing what Piers Corbyn was saying. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, on the 15-minute cities, the Tories party said, oh no, 15-minute cities. No, we don't want that. On the question of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, Piers Corbyn campaigning year in, year out. They call him a lunatic, conspiracy theory. And then at the Conservative Party conference, 20-mile speed limit was no good. The ULEZ campaign. Piers Corbyn stood against ULEZ from the beginning. Now the Tory party, the flagship policy of the Tory party is oppose ULEZ in London. Not only in London, but all around the country. Piers Corbyn said, tears down the cameras. Next thing, you've got Tory MPs saying, I'm not opposed to people taking down the cameras. So there you have it. If the pressure is there, from below, do not underestimate how much power we have. Because the way they get round it is that they adopt your policies. They say they're their policies. They always believed in those policies. And the way, how do they do it? The COVID inquiry, a bigger farce you couldn't imagine. Now the government turned around, the police suddenly defines to the to the Tory party for having parties. And in fact, a little snippet of information. Some of you might remember when the police came here and arrested me at Speaker's Corner for playing Benny Hill. For playing Benny Hill to them. I was playing Benny Hill. The police surrounded us. 36 police vans in Hyde Park, all full of TSG, Territorial Support Group. Well, the good news is, I took them to court and they paid up. Paid up. And I've got several other cases coming up exactly the same, as does Piers Corbyn. And I ask all of you who were arrested to do exactly the same thing. I take them to court, threaten them with court, and you see how they run. And say, here, take this, take this, take this. We don't want the trouble.
Heiko, I remember when you were on the bicycle dressed as a
That's another one.
policeman.
That's another one.
Oh yeah, and you kept saying, catch me, fatty, catch me.
I didn't get that much. I didn't get that much, but I got enough. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Here's to be up in a little while.
Red stuff, Mike. Red stuff.
Well said. Absolutely brilliant.
True to the line, Mike. True to the line. Absolutely true.
Like in Instagram, or where do you speak in? Maybe do you have social media? Just come here. YouTube. Which one?
He's standing for
Rumble?
MP for Conservatives. So Labour.
Can I just write it down? I believe. I agree totally with what you said. Yeah. I agree with everything you said. I've actually come to the same conclusion by myself, and I'm glad people exist. People like that who can do the same way I do.
Because this is
That's
just
crazy.
Absolute truth.
No, I don't. Well, you can. From Italy, but I lived here for 25 People are not aware. They need to wake up. There's only ways from below. Trying to. The pressure has to come from below. Nobody understands it. Watch Netflix, video all day long. They're just asleep, numb to what's going on in the world. Okay, great. It's up to them. Okay. Well, I think it's not going to happen. I might.
What's your good name, sir?
Thank you so much. Well done.
Nice meeting you. Red stuff.
I'm telling you because. Sorry.
What was you saying?
It comes out that
Why did you stand
the
up?
truth eventually will out. And it's proved.
I don't know. No, sir. What I'm saying is, Labour supporter or anyone party.
I used to be in the Labour Party and then they kicked me out.
Oh, well, that's it. So what?
You got to do independent stuff, you know. What is about mass education, mass involvement. That's where we're at now. We aren't understand. We can't defeat their apparatus of political power. We have to beat them on the information front.
Yeah.
That's not the way to do it.
It's a teaching lesson. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nice meeting you.
Piers Corbyn.
Okay, so start it now. Just. Oh, very now.